Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Books for Thought. This time around, for the month of November, I've selected the very well-known degree PPE, Philosophy, Politics, and Economics. And instead of choosing the books myself and telling you about why I think they're great options, I thought it might be fun if we could get the perspective of a student who is actually studying that degree right now. So I've got the lovely and talented Alba de la Cal with us here today, and she's going to be discussing her book selections that she hand-selected, keeping in mind the idea that these would be books that would give students considering PPE as a university degree an opportunity to understand what it would be like to study that degree, as well as an opportunity to figure out whether or not they would be interested in studying it. So, Alba, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you to you, Alison.
Book one is Doughnut Economics, and it was written by Kate Rayworth. Alba, why did you choose this book, and what can we learn from it about economics?
Well, I choose this book because it's really different from what you learn normally at university. Normally you learn about, actual economic system, Adam Smith, curve, demands, rational choice theory. But this book shows us how there are many problems that we haven't addressed on all the knowledge we learn at university. And in the system, how it works, we see that it's 21st century and we have many things solved, but we still having extended poverty, climate change problems, we got limited resources, and we seem like just not be interested in all these problems as the economic system as a whole. We try to find small solutions. This book actually addresses these problems, so you can be critic with the system, with the actual system, and try to adapt them. So I think it's a really good critics about all the the objectives of economic development and producing money for the sake of producing money, because like poverty and global change matters.
Interesting. So really, it's an innovative book presenting a new style of economic theory, but it also helps you understand the more traditional economic theory when you read it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of got everything you need, no? All the basics.
Super essential. Yeah.
So would you say that Doughnut Economics has increased your motivation when it comes to reading about the more traditional economic theory?
It said so because it made me understand better the economic theory. So now I can address points that I couldn't before, just with university knowledge. I couldn't see them, and now I can actually address them and like try to find economic ways to solve it, go farther from the knowledge they teach us in university. So it's kind of a curious thing to investigate. Again, it's our economic system. So.
Book two is 1984 by George Orwell. Alba, when we were talking about this before we started to record, you mentioned that you read this book prior to going to university, as well as after you had already begun your studies. How was it different the second time?
Well, I say that after 1 year of university, I had more details and more knowledge about how all our society works, and also more critical thought. So after reading it, it made easier to compare the critics on the fictional world that Orwell proposes and our society, and see why some objectives that we have addressed may not be ideal for the improvement of our morals. So it changed a lot. Yeah.
You mentioned that 1984 is a good illustration of how the three areas come together. But ultimately, you chose it for politics. Why is that?
Well, as I said, this is linked. It interconnects the three subjects because it's kind of a fictional development of human history based on the economic, political, and philosophical patterns that society has followed since it was written in 1949. And in the book, I choose politics specifically because even though we could see the three of them, the most important feature of the book is the political system, because we can see how it hinders human freedom. It makes people to live under really controlled and constrained societies where they have to remain obedient. And that's only thanks to the political system and thanks to how everything is centered into a big brother and everyone has to follow the same rules. So yeah, that's why I kind of highlight it, because I think it's really important to see the problematics and the dangers of a bad political system.
Okay. Yeah. And that also makes me think about how you mentioned the timelessness of this book. No, this book was written in 1949, and yet every generation that's followed reads this book and says, oh, this book is so relevant to right now. This book is so relevant to our times right now. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think that's because people from different generations has been able to visualize the path society is taking towards the future. I think it's really similar to the one described in the book in terms of how people is getting more and more controlled by governments, how people is losing freedom for many things, and we are starting to live in kind of a individualism where free and individual collectiveness, where free and individual ideas do not matter anymore.
Thinking that you chose these books with the objective of encouraging students to study PPE, and you think that they give them a good idea of what it's like. Why did you choose this book, even though you knew it wasn't the most happy book?
Well, I think the fact that it's not the most happy book is what it makes it interesting, because as far as we know in history, most of stories do not have happy endings. So I think that's why it's interesting to have in mind that we can have a sad ending. So why is this motivating for PPE students to have sad endings, to be aware of sad endings? Because that way we are able to build something that drives us to have a happy ending. That way we are more concerned and motivated about, more concerned about the risks of having bad political and economic systems and how that can absolutely destroy humanity, and also the opportunities we have if we kind of try to develop a new system that addresses all these problems and risks and solves them.
Book 3 is called The Usefulness of the Useless, and it was written by Nuccio Ordine. So, Alba, what's this book about?
Well, this book is basically, it talks about the utility that useless things give to humanity, like as the title says. It's basically a critique to how societies are focused on efficiency and economic development, and how activities such as reflection, meditation, philosophy are being left aside. Because right now, we only do things for the sake of doing them. I don't learn to play guitar just because I like it. I learn because I may want to be a musician. So it's basically a critique that we are only making things to produce our things, and we have forgotten about how making things or thinking about things is interesting and is beneficial just for the sake of doing them. Like philosophers in Greece, they were just thinking, and look how many theories they developed.
Alba, thank you very much for coming. It's been very fun and interesting to discuss your book selections today, and I am certain that our viewers will also really enjoy what you've had to offer. Well, that's all we've got for today. I hope you enjoyed Alba's book selections, and I hope that now you have a better idea of what PPE is, what it would be like to study it, and I wish you the best of luck as you continue your journey towards deciding whether or not it's going to be something that you'd like to study at university. We'll see you in January. Bye.